Hi, y'all. It's Bridget Cutshaw with Real Things Living. Today, my guest is Heather Eck. She is a multimedia artist and writer. And from her perspective, color is a powerful aspect of creating joy, healing, and love. Can you say hi, Heather?
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
I appreciate it for you being on. And for those that are watching the video or not, we're both wearing pink shirts today.
We are,
Slightly different shades, but pink.
for
And
sure.
I'm so glad I connected with Heather. What she does is really helping people translate emotions and experiences, right, through color.
Right.
And we don't really realize that certain colors that we like, right? Do you know, is that an intuition behind that? Or,
For what I see for people.
yeah, what do you see?
Yeah, I do. So I have something called synesthesia, and I also have this intuitive ability to see color around people, sort of like an aura. So I use both of those when I meet somebody. And my synesthesia kind of shows up in when I listen to music or eat something or taste something. I see
Oh,
it
wow.
in my mind's eye as color and shape and form.
Wow. That's exciting because you're not seeing black and white. I mean, makes your
Exactly.
life a little bit more exciting. And I think that's really kind of cool that that you see that. Do you know how this came about? What prompted you to go down this path?
Yeah. So I think that this has been with me since I was a kid because I remember, like laying on my floor in my bedroom, drawing what I saw in music and sort of seeing the shapes and the squiggles and all play out as I was creating something. But I honestly didn't, I think I thought everybody had it or that it wasn't unique to me at all. But it really wasn't until about a year ago that I found the definition of it and sort of developed a vocabulary around it where I could say, this is what happens for me. Do you feel that too? Or, do you see that as well? So it kind of happened a long time ago.
I think that's awesome. You're definitely opening up your mind to what's out there. And I think that helps you deal with any kind of issues or help come up with, I always use the word solutions,
Mhm.
different problems out there. And I think that is a visual. I like visual stuff too.
Yeah.
I think that's probably why I like having a physical book in my hand.
Hmm.
Rather, I mean, people have
Tactile.
ebooks, you can look at it, but it's more tactile. I think that's
Yeah.
another thing with me. I think that's a popular thing from our generation.
Yeah.
We're more tactile, is that the right word? And
I think so. Yeah.
I like books that have, even though they got a lot of words, I'm more engaged if it has a picture in there. I don't know. That's me. I like you, I'm visual, but I don't see the colors, but I'm like, it makes a story stand out a little bit more, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like that too. If I find a book and it's got that group of pictures in the middle from like a biography, I instantly flip to that because I want
Right.
to see like
It
what visualize it.
You're right. It helps you connect with that story. Words are important, but I guess it just depends on how our brain operates.
Hmm.
Is that the way it is? And how I think you're engaging creativity as well. And it is something that is like art is healing and transformative. And I think I mentioned, guys, before I was on the call with Heather, I read an article yesterday, a New York Times, and how people are going that path now rather than just taking a prescription, they call it social prescription. And this falls in line with that, meaning you can go take an art class, you can go talk to someone like Heather to help you figure out what is what you need, right? And
Yeah,
help you make that change. And that's what I see transformation is it helps you heal
it
um,
does.
to make a change and we get stuck,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think art can be so healing for people when you're just open to it. So I like to teach classes where I say, you don't have to have any experience at all. Just come in and let your hands do what they want to do. Let your mind kind of be free for a little while and see what comes up for you. And I think that there's healing in just quieting the mind through allowing your hands to do something, and get your brain out of the way for a little bit.
Right. It is definitely can be emotional too. I think drawing might be sometimes less traumatic than writing about. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I do know what you're saying. Yeah. Sometimes it's easier to have a picture, even if it's just a scratch. It doesn't have to be something museum quality, but just to get it out of your head and develop a visual around it versus sitting and writing in a journal sometimes can feel taxing.
Yes, exactly. And it's just could be simpler to draw.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm a believer in trying to keep it simple. I'm
Same.
guilty of not, but
Me too. I overcomplicate and I like over categorize things in my attempt to organize it. I create chaos.
but that's you. I think it's good that you're embracing that and being honest with that. And I think that's what I think we need more of that in our culture. Is that the right word?
Mhm.
Culture affects how we think we have to be,
Yeah.
how to fit into a box. And you and I are both raised around the army in a way.
Hmm.
And maybe that's why a little rebelliousness comes out because that environment is very got to stay in this. You got to understand the rules. You do have to have
Do
rules.
you? Yeah.
But at the same time, it's okay to speak out and think outside the box because that's how if you get stuck like that, you're going to have some emotional or I shouldn't say emotional, but some issues.
Hmm.
And so did you go to school? I know a little bit about your background. Did you go to school to
I went
learn
to
this?
the University of Delaware and I minored in art. But like years and years ago, I think I was maybe 14 or 15. My dad was the one in the army. He was like, I think you'd be really good in human resources. And I was like, what is that? And so I actually went into human resources. So I
Awesome.
really listened. Um, and then years later, kind of said, I felt like I needed more of a creative outlet. So I minored in art in college, but I didn't do anything with it really outside of like little hobbies, little Etsy shops here and there, until just the last 5 or 6 years.
Oh wow. That's really
Mhm.
cool. That Etsy's a real popular platform, and I think it's good for people to look at that, by the way. Check out that site if you're not familiar with Etsy. And I
Yeah,
didn't
it's
know you
awesome.
had a Etsy page. I'm assuming it's called a channel. I'm not sure what they call it on
I think it
Etsy.
is or like a storefront, I guess. Like
Storefront,
a little
excuse me.
store. Yeah.
I'm thinking YouTube channel, but
Oh, yeah.
that is just glad that your father, I mean, he gave you feedback because he saw you how you were
Hmm.
and you learned a lot from being in human resources.
Oh, yeah. I don't regret any of my experience. I think all of it has educated me and given me the tools I need today to run my business. And I think, human
Definitely.
resources,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it brought me into coaching and it taught me caring and it taught me a lot of ways to communicate and work with people. So that helps me today, absolutely every day. I'm glad that I did that.
Subconsciously, right? In a way.
Mhm.
So coaching is such I shouldn't say powerful, it's a powerful venue. And so why do you think, I'm just kind of jumping around a little bit,
Yeah.
that people are gonna seek a coach? Why, you gotta, in a way, your art is I think your art is a good way to bring them in.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that a lot of the conversations I have with somebody around their colors and their portrait and what I'm seeing for them is sort of like a mini coaching conversation in a way. And I think it's like knowing how to ask questions to help people arrive at things on their own versus telling them something. I think there's a lot of power within your ability to figure something out or to have that epiphany or to go, oh, yes, okay. I've been trying to figure this out for a long time and I haven't been able to. So I think coaching helps people kind of discover things they might have already known about themselves, but didn't quite know how to get at.
Right? It's definitely something that you don't realize you need it until you talk to somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
100%. Yeah.
it is coaching, I think, is a safe environment and you want to work with a coach who is going to ask the right questions and listen. And that's why you probably have a multiple conversations and it's based on that your client's goal, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
they might not know what their goal is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. I think a lot of the people who come to me are sort of at the beginning of some sort of spiritual awakening or spiritual sort of opening. And I think color is a really gentle way to step into that and to develop a curiosity about more. And so I feel like that's a great conversation that we get to have that sort of opens up the gateway to discovering more about yourself spiritually, emotionally, and all of that.
I also know that you also follow the chakra
Mhm.
system. I think I didn't get certified in that, but I looked at that when I was had going through some health issues, and it helped me to understand what my, is it pronounced right? Chakra or
The
chakra?
chakras.
Sorry.
Yep, you did. You said it right.
It's so what got you like spirituality? People really need to understand that is a critical component of our soul, right?
Yep.
And who we are. So,
Hmm.
so you give them a I'm assuming a chakra test or something or a quiz.
So I actually will, if I do a portrait for somebody, I'll sit with their picture and meditate on their energy. And as
Okay.
I'm seeing into them, I'll see like a color or a shape for each of the chakras, and then I'll do a painting for them that tells them what color I see that they spend the most time in. And
Oh
then
wow.
sort of like that social prescription, kind of like a color prescription. Like if I see that you're somebody who dwells in your sacral chakra and you're really needing a way to be more creative or to express yourself, I might prescribe orange or purple as a way to connect to your higher self or your higher power to intuitively be guided to just create whatever it is that you want to bring into the world. So it's an interesting way of seeing color as a tool to help
Oh
people
wow. I never
find.
really thought about that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
uh it's also as you were talking, I'm thinking, yeah, being creative, I see it helps me too. It helps release some tension a little bit.
Mhm.
And because we don't know what we're going to come against every day or in life in general.
Mhm.
And I've noticed some people that have retired recently or whatever, they're getting into art now, which
Uh-huh.
they've been had it inside them this whole time.
Yeah. That's fascinating to me too. I think that there's I was just going to say I think that a lot of us don't give ourselves time and space to just one, sit quietly to either meditate or pray or whatever helps to bring you stillness. But then two, we sort of lose our creative outlet sometimes because we're just so focused on, go, 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 go. And we're pummeled by all these outside influences all day. And then when you retire or, you do have health issues or something makes you slow down, then you go, oh, I've always wanted to learn to play the violin, or I've always wanted to paint, and all that creative energy sort of starts to come back in to help support you there.
Yeah, it does. It's definitely, there's so many outlets you can do creatively, and
Hmm.
color is something that I like. I'm one of those people that I like music. Music is healing to me.
Hmm.
I'm not good at playing an instrument, but I can dance, right? So
That's a
that is
great
to me,
creative outlet.
it's engaging with the sounds, and I love the art on covers of like of an album or something. And I think I've
Hmm.
seen that, Heather, coming back as well, actual physical albums. I'm sure you have too, not just a digital download.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're surrounded by art, right? It's part of who we are day to day, but sometimes I don't think we pay attention to it or we don't really like notice. Like you chose that pink shirt today for a reason I did too, right? So when you notice that, you start to go, oh, what is it that I'm trying to attract to myself today? And for us, it's love. It's a higher love. So we're trying to pull
Correct.
in the energy of love and acceptance and compassion to ourselves today.
I've had breast cancer twice, and I think breast cancer, I don't know, having that makes me think of the love. And I do run a lot, and I don't wear the shirt, but I have pink shoes on purpose, Heather. I
I
just
love that. Yeah.
because my feet are loving me better.
Mhm. Yeah. And you're
I never
rooting
thought about
yourself in
that.
love too.
Right. And people just think it's kind of funny, but I've never been a person who like black running shoes. Sorry, that's just me.
Yeah.
And I think that's my I'm letting my personality come out. And people, I've seen other people do it. I've seen people wear orange ones.
Hmm.
What do you think that means if they're wearing orange running shoes? I'm just curious.
That so you're rooting yourself in your creative expression, in your sense of relationships with people,
Oh,
in your
and
sensuality. It's like a big bold color that's like, look at me. So that's fun to see people do that.
it just makes me happy. I just want to make it more fun.
Yeah,
And that's why it's hard to find pink running shoes that fit, this
yeah.
there's different types of shoes out there and the way you're as you get older too. The way you're stepping,
You
but
need
when I
different arch
see them,
support.
right, I'm a neutral runner, but you have to have a specific brand that fits my feet better. And
Uh-huh.
so when they come out, yes, I'm gonna go buy that because I know I'm not gonna have pain with it. You
Yeah.
know, one year I'm just blabbing too much. I got a pair of Sauconys that were the American flag because I ran the peach tree here on 4th of July.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
But I just wanted it to be people. That's why I think people like those kinds of races, because you won't believe the costumes people wear, Heather.
Oh, I believe it. Yes.
I won't wear a costume, but I'll wear some cool shoes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's too hot for me to have on that costume stuff. But they might be fine with it. I just think what you're doing is allowing people to be themselves, and it helps to be more open, and they're healing, right? They're
Hmm.
healing themselves when they're expressing some way.
Yeah.
And then it helps build their resilience. Can you explain a little bit, healing and resilience, how that's connected through the colors that you're
Yeah,
using?
it's so interesting because when I talk to somebody and I start to explain what I'm seeing for them, I just did a portrait for someone on Monday, and when I started to do his painting, I saw a heart take shape on the paper, but it was an anatomical heart. It wasn't like a cartoony heart. And so I paused and I mentioned that to him because I felt like it was important because it was related to his physical body, but also to the root chakra, which is about our sense of stability, our body, physical health, and about how we connect to people. And so after I finished his painting, he shared with me that he had just had a heart scan and his results came back clear. So he was really in the moment of working on his physical health
Oh,
and
wow.
trying to live the healthiest life possible. And so it was interesting to see how color shows up for people, but it enables them to sort of be more intentional about how they're living their lives. And for him, he was being intentional about taking care of his body, and that came through his painting for
Oh,
him.
that is a great example on how you can help people figure out what they're doing and how
Hmm.
to move forward. And
Yeah, it
it
was
definitely
cool.
can help build your resilience. I believe that you aren't born with it.
Mm,
You have to deal with things
yeah,
and to pick yourself up. And you helped him figure out, yeah, I need to focus on my physical health. And especially after having a health scare, I get
yeah,
that. You do focus on things differently in life.
yeah,
I want things, even though I get excited and involved in stuff, I stay with something if it's important to me.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
You have to understand that. That's kind of why I think your color perspective, coloring, whatever, and your artistic perspective is helping people figure out. And so how do you sound very similar to me. I always like to focus on hope and optimism. And that is kind of interesting because I've had people be negative to me that I am optimistic. So they have an issue maybe making that
yeah.
comment, right?
Yeah, that's true. I think that it's so important to maintain optimism and everything. I feel like my son and I love the show Bob's Burgers, and there's the Bob's Burgers movie, and there is a song in the movie called Unstoptimistic where you're like, you can't stop being optimistic. And I feel like that's me. I sort of try to look for the silver lining in everything, and I try to sort of accept that not everything's going to go your way, but it's not going to go your way for a reason. And I have trust and faith that I think that's all connected, right? Like you can remain optimistic because you trust that everything's happening for you and that everything's intended for your highest and best. And so that's sort of how I try to move through life. And, I see a closed door as something, if something doesn't go my way, I kind of go, okay, well, what can I learn from it? And how can I choose to do something differently next time? And what's mine is mine and it'll show up when it's supposed to.
That's true. And that's a sign that, yeah, don't go forward on that path.
Right.
I mean, because some people can be stubborn and not listen to that, and they can end up making things worse. So, you know what I'm saying? If they go
Yeah.
through that door,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, a closed door, and to reflect on it, that's really a good point to reflect on it. What can you learn? And then you can pivot and go to take that next step,
Right.
whatever your goal is, right? And
Exactly.
I'm thinking as we get in this chapter of our life, right? What you're doing, you can also help people. It popped in my brain. Find what their purpose is.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you explain how color can you're looking at that, what can help them figure out what their purpose is?
Yeah, for sure. I think, talking to some people, if I see that they're sort of in a place of grief, for example, then I might say to them, okay, I see you sort of dwelling in the space of sadness. What's that coming from? What is it that you're trying to move away from? And sometimes it's associated to helping other people, right? So I spoke to somebody the other day who's I saw blue around her and in her throat. And I felt like there was something she was trying to get out into the world, but didn't quite know how to do. And it turned out she was in the middle of writing a book and she was getting stuck at certain
Ah,
chapters because she was trying to control the narrative instead of just letting it flow out of her. And I think in that case, it's sort of like holding a mirror up to somebody and showing them what they already know and intuitively. I think she sort of felt like she then knew what to do, right? She was able to say, okay, I'm going to stop controlling. I'm just going to free write, see what comes out, and I'll edit it later. But there was something about her story that she was meant to sort of reach her hand back and help somebody and pull them along with her so that, they could find healing and in resilience
right.
too.
Well, that's good that, yeah, a lot of writers do that. They call it writer's block, but really
Mhm.
I think it is to do with being public about your it's kind of scary and you're focused on perfectionism.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That vulnerability, right? That you kind of need to be open about in order to get the truth out. And then in order to help yourself and other people too. Yeah,
That's
it's
true.
scary. It's scary to be vulnerable.
It is very scary.
Mhm.
And from that generation where we did share much. I'm an older Gen Xer, and it
Mhm.
was actually my sons who were the ones that I needed my sons to, Mom, you're a good writer. Why don't you do a blog? And it was healing, Heather,
Yeah.
when I was going through all those and I started my blog 14 years ago. Isn't that hilarious?
Wow.
But it was my sons. They knew intuitively, Mom needs to get that out of her somehow. But
I do think our kids are like our teachers, they really do see things about ourselves that we don't see sometimes. It's really
right.
cool.
And I think they knew I was good at writing and editing just because I probably was too much of a grammar Nazi for them when they were doing their homework. But I mean, I wasn't negative with them, but I would they were asking me to read it and give them feedback, and I was probably really detailed, sorry. But that is, as I see too, as we're talking, talk about the color and the purpose and all that. I'm a believer in bringing out, thinking about what you liked when you were a child, what brought you
Yes.
joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that
And
too.
so you do that as well, because I was one of those kids who was into photography. Maybe that's why I like visuals. I was so into that. And back in the day, having a Polaroid was like awesome.
Yeah.
You didn't have
Yeah.
to wait for however long to get your film processed. People don't realize that how lucky they are now, right? You take a picture and it's instantly on your phone or whatever.
You would drop your film off and wait a week to get it
Yeah.
back.
And so having a Polaroid was like a
A
big
dream.
deal back then. And I
Mhm.
think that's just something I just knew for some reason. I just was that kid that liked to be a little wild and I would take pictures. and I would write, and it was being my creative expression, right?
Yeah.
And I followed that. I mean, I'm not a professional, extraordinary writer, but I like to tell stories, right?
Mhm.
And I think, and I probably why I like pink, because after talking to you, I didn't really think about that. Am about love. I am about focus for, I'm just being me. But
Yeah.
even though people have been negative to me, I might respond, I just give them the middle finger, sorry. And then that's what I've learned as I've gotten older. Because when I was younger, you took it negatively. I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And you probably did, probably had people tell you that as well, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm a recovering people pleaser for sure. Um, and that's hard. That's a hard thing to overcome. And I think I think our childhoods show us a lot about what we're here to do and where our gifts are. And I think it's hard sometimes not to listen to the chatter or the negativity or the, you can't do this or don't do that or you're not good at this or what have you. And just sort of, be open to following what excites you and where your curiosities are. And that's
That's
really
true.
important.
And it does take practice. Like you said, you're not born an artist. You just got to practice, and just got to do it a little bit at a time, and you tweak it. And just like with writing, but with that woman you had mentioned, she had this great story, but she was internally just gotta get, you taught her to get it out,
Yeah,
and then you can edit it later. And
right.
it doesn't matter, you just got to get the idea out. And some people I know who do write books, they focus on just doing an outline first. I get kind of stuck on that, Heather.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know what's the beginning and the end. Yeah, I do believe you do have to kind of have an end in sight, but then that's kind of how the story goes there, and the flow will change,
yeah.
just like life, right?
Yeah, just like life, you kind of just have to capture it and then see where it goes from there. And a friend of mine said, if you're writing a book, just take 5 minutes each day and just brain dump ideas and just get
Yes,
it out of your head. Don't worry about the actual writing. Just get your stories mapped out, and then later you can look at it and go, what's the arc here? What's
yes.
the theme that I'm seeing?
I think that's what holds people back if they're told to have an outline of it just kind of, they're like, no, thank you, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it becomes overwhelming when you have too much structure if that doesn't work for how you think about things.
Right. It's just such a great conversation, and the energy that you're providing, you're helping people deal with their emotions and experiences through visual.
Hmm.
And it's so cool that when you're talking to them, you're drawing a picture for them. I think that means a lot to your clients, I'm sure. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm just visualizing what would she do about me? I mean, that's what I mean, like, oh Lord. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm just known. I think it's great to be you, and you're seeing that. And I just think there's a great I think I wrote a blog post about be yourself. And I think
Hmm.
one of my favorite one of my favorite singers was Chris Cornell.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and one of his songs was Be Yourself. And I looked at the lyrics and like, holy cow. And it really, I wasn't into Chris Cornell really until he started doing covers, until he went into people who aren't familiar with him, until he
Uh,
was part of Audio Slave, because it was a different type of writing,
yeah.
and it resonated with me more. And I think that's maybe why I like music, because I like the word. I focus on the
On
story.
the lyrics. Yeah,
I
same.
focus
That's the first thing I do when I like a song is I'll go and I'll read the lyrics because I'm like, wait,
It
what?
means, and it can mean something different for you or someone else, but it's something that happened in your life. And I was always told, I was born in the mid 60s and grew up in the 70s, and it was different back then.
Right.
You got to
Yeah.
fit in. And I was
Hmm.
like, and it just kind of held a lot of people back. And I'm sure that was the time frame. I looked to women too who were stepping up.
Hmm.
And my mom, thinking back on it, she was a great role model,
Oh,
because she was she had it tough, because she married an American soldier. She's not from the U.S. So you can imagine that it was a little tougher for
That
her.
was probably a lot harder for her than we even know, you know?
Right. And she was very, I saw her always being stoic. And I think that's where I learned I got to be stoic. Right.
Mhm.
And but she's from that generation being born around, right around World War II. Is when she was, you know what I'm saying? There.
Yeah. It was a different time, um, and different challenges that they had
And
then.
I understand her better now, but she was always just didn't say anything other than only thing that ever came out of her mouth was a critique. And so I'm like,
Oh,
but I don't think she meant that. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So it's just funny how your upbringing, I had a mom growing up in the South, mostly in the South, who was an American, who had an accent. And I'm sure your father, you had mentioned, was in the army.
Yeah.
So you probably, I think that it's helpful that we interconnect with other people who are different. And that's, I think, why your perspective on life is different. And I think that's why my mom was such a good role model. I saw, even though she was stoic, she still responded properly. Every now, I think all of our parents said stuff to us unintentionally,
Oh,
but
yeah. Yeah.
it just I'm like, she's brave and she taught me English, which is hilarious. I think I'm just telling you, it's just funny now that I said things backwards sometimes because in France, French is backwards.
Oh, that's so interesting.
I didn't realize I was doing that because, and I
Because she
think,
was teaching you.
but it's unique having a multicultural background, and I
Mhm.
think that's what she wanted to come to the U.S. That's what she saw. Um, so which is good,
Yeah,
and
that's really cool.
it. But my mom is not really, you know what I'm saying. She was more
Yeah.
very extremely logical and
More like
into.
logical, not really on the creative, artistic
She's
side.
not. She's extremely, which is fine, which is
And
good. And I
then
think the
you had your
creative.
creative outlet as a kid that was showing up for you then.
That's probably what it is, right? And my
Hmm.
father was um, very creative, good. Was the storyteller too.
Oh,
But that's where I didn't see him much because they got, he went to Vietnam after I was born. So
okay.
that kind of messed up a lot of marriages. But he was extremely, I think that's where I get it from, and my brother too,
That's cool.
because he was a great storyteller. And it's just I feel like I'm talking too much about me, but
You're all right.
I'm talking like, yeah, I just kind of share this with Heather. And but it's just amazing what you're doing to help people, and you're kind of you're inspiring. I'm very inspired about what you're doing to help people because I'm a people pleaser and a helper, and I like to connect people like
Hmm.
you because I didn't know this existed, what you're doing. I knew about the chakra, but I
Yeah.
didn't know about the color. See, the things that we learn,
Isn't that
um,
cool?
you can learn being on a podcast as a guest or a host.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love your optimism, and I think it's so beautiful what you're doing. Can you share with us where people can learn about you, Heather?
Yeah, thank you so much. I love to connect with people on Instagram, and you can find me there at Heather Eck Artist. And then on my website at heathereck.com, if you do /thank you, I've got a bunch of freebies out there, including like a color and chakra guide. So if you're new to colors and chakras, that guide's going to give you like a high level overview of how colors work for us and what they tell us about ourselves. It's really, really cool.
I think you're really cool. So, no,
I think you're really cool too.
I just love that we have some good energy here because we're being open. And I love the way Heather has decided to help other people. It's something that we need to be more aware of. And I thank you again for people that are listening. And thank you again for your time, Heather.
Thank you for having me. It's been so nice to connect with you.
Thanks, guys.